Good morning, my beautiful followers. How is everybody today? Everyone's morning is starting amazing. It is dark and dreary out, and lately I've been wanting to do my lives early. I've just had more inspiration in the morning, so here I am. Been up for a little while. Did my morning journaling, all my morning routines, since our morning routines are so important. So important. I never miss my morning journaling. Like that is a staple to my morning. Plus my coffee. My coffee is always a staple for the most part. Unless like yesterday I went to yoga I had to leave here at 5:30 and there was no coffee. I didn't do coffee before yoga yesterday, but coffee today before I go see my amazing clients that I love. I get to see somebody I haven't seen in a while, so I'm really excited for my appointment today with my client, or one of my clients, actually both of them. I have two clients that I've not seen in a while that I'm going to get to see, so I'm excited. I love you guys. I love my clients, but that is not the topic. My gratitude for my awesome badass clients is not the topic, though it kind of came from my clients, the topic for today. So last night I was having a beautiful session with this man that I've been working with. We were having this conversation about vulnerability, and I found myself so engaged in the conversation. I found myself like leaning forward and really in it. And it was because the conversation was so different than most vulnerability conversations that I have with individuals. Vulnerability is not something we enjoy talking about, but it is a requirement for us to have better relationships. The more willing we are to really get engaged with our own vulnerability and then sharing vulnerability with others, hearing other people's vulnerability, the better our relationships get. I know that this is not my sexy, let's talk about sex, or let's talk about orgasm, or this is how you stroke your partner, that's how you stroke your partner, but I promise you that no relationship, even the bedroom relationship, is going to work unless you have some really good vulnerability going on to deepen that relationship. But last night we were talking, and my client was like, it's so much easier to be vulnerable with people that you don't know. They don't really know. Like if you're in a group environment and you're asked to share, it can be at one level more easier, more fluid to share, because you're like, I don't really care about these people. Like I don't know them at that depth. And so there is some safety and anonymity and knowing that you might not ever see these people ever again. And it was interesting because I can relate to that. We were talking about in different ways how we show our vulnerability. And as a dancer, I remember like if I was to have people in the audience when I was younger that I knew and I cared about and I loved, I would want to do so much better. I would want to really show them that I was a good dancer, and I really wanted to be open and vulnerable, but it was harder versus getting on stage for 1,000 people and I didn't know anyone in the audience. So it was easier to get on stage and open up, because it was like I'm not having my head space kind of swirling as much. It really is more about the internal and just you. So anyway, then he talked about music, and then we talked about like straight up relationships, how if you're in a deeper relationship with somebody, it can be more difficult to be vulnerable. And then afterwards I was thinking, because this moment really it was like, wow, like that's so incredibly true, that when there's anonymity, it's easier to be vulnerable. And I don't want to say that when we're with a group of people we don't know, or in a situation where we're not as ingrained in that other person that it's not vulnerability, because it is still vulnerability. I have seen some beautiful, beautiful acts of really opening up the heart and vulnerability, but it more is vulnerability with self in those situations. I've watched it. You know, I run groups all the time as a therapist. When I was back in the day when I was doing therapy, I would watch some people really open themselves up to a group of strangers, which can be very difficult and vulnerable because you don't know the reaction of those strangers. So there is still vulnerability. But then I was thinking about intimate relationships, and we risk at a different level with intimate relationships. And when I say intimate relationships, I'm not just talking about your sexual partner here or your husband or your wife. I'm talking about any intimate relationships, anybody that you have deep intimacy with. So this could be your kids, this could be your best friend, this could be your family, like parents, those kind of people. This could be your intimate partner, your sexual partner. It really could be anybody that you have this deep connection with. At that level, you risk something completely different. You oftentimes risk abandonment issues. You're going against these issues of they're going to leave me. They're not going to like me. They're going to see me in a different way. They're not going to love me. And that usually will go back to our wounding. It really will. It really will tie back to that wounded piece of self that we all have. So let's just get fucking honest with ourselves and go like, yeah, we all have this shadow piece, this woundedness, this darker side that we risk others seeing. And we try to keep this piece of self so hidden oftentimes. And when we're dealing with people who are in our innermost relationships, the people that we truly care about, we risk the most in being vulnerable with them. But at the same time, there should be safety at some level in vulnerability with somebody that you are in such an intimate relationship with. And why is this? Why would that be? And in truth, it's because the vulnerability should have been happening throughout the relationship, creating some level of trust and faith and certainty that no matter what you do, this other person is going to love you. This other person is going to see you, and this other person sees this deeper piece of you that what I would consider unconditionally loves you. That's not to say that the person is going to like what you have to say. This is not to say that that person might not change their opinion of you. But my client the other day, yesterday, was going like, yeah, but what happens if they leave? And I'm like, if they leave out of a vulnerable moment like that so quickly, then the truth is there probably hasn't been vulnerability happening. There hasn't been communication happening. There hasn't been sharing happening throughout that period before, because if it comes as such a shock or somebody flips so suddenly, usually there wasn't communication at some level happening or some authenticity happening. And so the issue isn't really the vulnerability. The issue usually is the lack of communication prior. So I would say almost some little points of vulnerability that somebody didn't choose to take. And why am I hitting on this so incredibly hard today? Why am I focused so much on vulnerability? And it is because I think we get into these deeper relationships, and that is actually when we are most scared to be vulnerable. We block ourselves from vulnerability. We block others from seeing our true self when we we get into almost a rut with them, how they see them, how we see them, how they see us, and we get really consistent with that. And when we get really consistent with that, we fear rattling the boat at all. And so we end up sticking to the norm, and that's when we really get out of authenticity, really get out of integrity with self. And I've been seeing a lot of people right now that are not willing to get really authentic and vulnerable with self. I've been doing, and I keep mentioning it, and it's going to be going on for months, so you guys get to just get comfy with it. But I've been doing I've been doing this training for personal growth stuff. It's going to go on for probably all year. But we have been really focused in on shadow self, or I've been doing my work on shadow self. And there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying in this group, but a lot of people that I'm looking out and going, wow, you really don't know your shadow at all. I've been seeing it somewhat in my clients. We tend to go, I don't want to see that. And so that is a lack of vulnerability, a lack of truly connecting with self. And if you really can get vulnerable with yourself and go, yeah, that's a piece of me. Yeah, that's a piece of me. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that I might not like that piece of myself, but I love myself. If you can't get to that with self, it's going to be almost impossible for you to do that with another person. And vulnerability in a relationship is so critical. I have had some beautiful relationships outside of their vulnerability, like people who are really, they have a lot to offer. Some men, they've had so much to offer. They've been doing everything right, but the vulnerability was missing. And when the vulnerability piece is missing, when the sharing is missing, when the opening of the heart is missing, that can only last about this long, and then the relationship is going to fall apart. You have to keep going deeper in relationship. Otherwise, it becomes stagnant, and nobody at that point is really getting anything from a relationship when it's just like, it is finding those new levels of vulnerability. And we'd like to think of vulnerability as this deep, dark, like, let me share all this darkness. And sometimes actually the most vulnerable thing we can do is play. The most vulnerable thing we can do at some points is be playful, be goofy, be silly, because as adults we don't want to see that piece of ourselves. So my question to you guys today, or not my question, my challenge to you, like it was to my client last night, is to look at what is keeping you from being the most vulnerable in your intimate relationships, in those deeper relationships. What is keeping you from being vulnerable with self? What don't you want to see? What are you scared of happening if you get really vulnerable with self? In your intimate relationships, and that could be in the bedroom too. Like, this doesn't have to always be in communication. I know that there is a level of vulnerability and trying new things and asking for what you desire and what you need. That is incredibly vulnerable in the bedroom when you're in this open orgasmic state and you're like, oh, a little to the left, please. Or I would really like it if you would move me into this position, or could you do this, or can you make a change here? That can be incredibly vulnerable. So it doesn't always have to be like verbal communication. This can sometimes be just like reaching out and touching somebody, giving somebody a kiss that is appropriate to give a kiss to. Giving a hug, asking for your hand to be held. These little things, sometimes it doesn't always have to be verbal. Sometimes it can just be physical. But I really want you to look at what are you fearful of with happening in an intimate relationship if you go to that next level of vulnerability, if you open your heart up. Are you scared of somebody leaving? Are you scared of somebody not loving you? So if you're scared of somebody leaving you and exiting the relationship, you need to probably look at your abandonment issues. If you're scared of somebody not loving you, then where are you not loving yourself enough? Where are you not feeling you're lovable enough? Where are you not feeling worthy enough? So look at all those different pieces If you need any individual help on your vulnerability, I am here as a coach, though my schedule is filling up quickly as we move into the end of the year. I have early next week, I'm going to be announcing some new and exciting programs and things for the end of the year. And then I have an online program that is going to be relaunching. I encourage you all to guess. Like, let's make this a game. Like, guess which program is Addison going to unleash again in the end of this year. I don't know what kind of prize I could give you, but you'll get a pat on the head. You'll get a pat on the head if you guess it right. And Kendall, you can't guess, you know. So yeah, I will be relaunching some really cool stuff and launching for the first time some cool stuff at the beginning of next week. So please be on the lookout for all of that. If you're in the DFW area, then please check out all my events. Kendall Williams has an amazing event coming up this weekend. It is the Quantum Field Tantra. It is a level 1 certification program. I will be there. I am the model, and so I'll be there and engaged in it. So if you're in the DFW area, jump into that workshop. I also have for you ladies an art project coming up the following weekend, and then as always, we have Orgasm Camp coming up, and we already have people signing up. So if you want to be part of Orgasm Camp this year, Winter Wonderlust as it's called in the calendar, please get your booty registered now, because we are a month out exactly, and it is already starting. I don't want to say it's filled up, but we already have one or a couple of signups. This workshop always sells out early. So, and if you want my one-on-one coaching, video, online, phone, whatever, then please check out my application on my website at addisonbell.net. Other than that, I hope you guys go and have a blessed day. Go and rock it out. We're getting to the end of the week, so go rock the rest of this week out. And go and do that work. Really take the time to do your personal work. Look at that vulnerability. And I challenge you to step up into one deeper vulnerability today and just see how it goes. See how it feels. Really tune into your body when you do it. So, all right, guys, check me out at addisonbell.net. Other than that, I love you, and I will see you tomorrow for another Addison Unleashed. Bye, guys.